Man, that was a match for the ages. What an emotional ride. What an epic match. Man, that was a unique dichotomy of fan support back and forth. But The Rock, with all those rock bottoms and the people's elbow, finally prevailing over the veteran Lion, got pinned by the younger Lion.
I think what you're seeing now, look at these fans, they're on their feet, they're clapping. I think they're clapping for both of these superstars.
As well they should.
What a match! What a match!
Wow! The Rock, victorious at WrestleMania. And the Skydome Jinx continues to haunt Hollywood Hogan. But by God, quite frankly, he's got absolutely nothing to be ashamed of here. I tell you what, folks, we've seen a lot of Super Bowls that the game doesn't live up to the hype. In my opinion, this match lived up to the hype.
It didn't live up to it, it far surpassed it. It was great.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Terry Balea.
And I'm the Icon.
And we are coming to you from March the 17th, 2002, from the Skydome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, for WrestleMania 18. Icon versus Icon. The Rock versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan making his way on the top 100 list.
For
guys.
the first time.
Did you ever think we'd get here?
No. I thought we were doing Last Mania standing.
More importantly, did you ever think we'd get to episode 50?
Definitely not.
I thought I'd be 50 years old.
Which is not quite how old Hulk Hogan is in this match.
No,
to be
not quite.
fair.
And really by that I mean it doesn't feel like we've done 50 episodes, right? It feels like we literally just started this list yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we just started getting harassed by podcast hitman like last week.
Lennon, it's actually been 18 months.
It's ridiculous.
I know, right?
And it's been a really, really fun 18 months. 49 matches down. On to episode 50. We're halfway to determining what will be the last match standing. And just, man, how much fun has this been? And we're super grateful for everyone that's come along on the ride. And today, actually, for the first time, we're going to have a little bit of actual input during the episode when it comes to our ranking segment from one of our patrons. And so we'll have more on that later. But, I think that's a really great milestone and a good way to kick off the 50th episode.
Well, I think so, too, because this match is mad as a bag of hammers, guys. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's a really, really well put. I have no idea where this match is going.
I think this is a match that I do believe is absolutely one where people feel very, very differently about it. You're going to have some that want it at the top, and you're going to have some that want it at the bottom, and I am fascinated to find out where you two guys will land.
Yeah,
The truth might be somewhere in the middle.
Here's the thing. So Hulk Hogan, love him or hate him, understood the wrestling business better than most, right? This man was able to take the ball and run better than anyone McMahon Sr. or Jr. had before. He became a household name worldwide. Call them whatever you want. You can't call them unsuccessful.
No, he's successful, but you got to think about Hulk Hogan was Yeah, back in the 80s and 90s, if you didn't watch wrestling, that's the thing that Hulk Hogan does.
Exactly.
Like, if people knew who he was, didn't watch wrestling.
And that's a really big point of this match is, whose name is bigger, Hulk Hogan or The Rock? And I think it's a very interesting time to ask that question in 2002. Obviously, that answer might be a little bit different now here in 2020.
Well, one of them is the highest paid actor in Hollywood.
Exactly.
And the other one's Hulk Hogan.
I love that you brought that up because it kind of brings up another question is what if this wasn't The Rock, right? Because do you think the fact that they picked The Rock to go versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 over an Austin Hogan dream match solidifies the fact that, at least in Vince McMahon's mind, The Rock is the better man out of Rock and Austin?
Yeah.
I actually don't know. And I'll tell you why I don't know. I don't know because I don't know if Austin could have had this match with Hogan.
No. Are you guys ready for me to blow your minds?
I'm ready.
The Rock pitched this 6 months before WrestleMania.
So the way I understood it was McMahon took this to The Rock.
No, he asked him, how would you feel about Hulk Hogan coming back? He said, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be even better if I could wrestle him. Funny you mentioned that, pal. We're thinking about having you two at WrestleMania.
Yeah. So this was definitely sort of a long-term deal. And the fact that they chose Rock, Spencer, to your point, they were able to do something that any combination of two other guys would not have been able to do what they did. Even Hogan Austin.
Yeah, but The Rock pitched, let's bring the NWO back. And Vince was like, that's a good idea. I was actually considering that anyway. Ha.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I kind of heard that the other way around. I would have to check our sources.
The source is The Rock.
The source is The Rock. Okay, well, there you go. That's a pretty good fucking source.
I watched a very long interview he did about this match.
You know who else is a really good source? Deadly Pudding on Twitter.
Oh my God. So yes, before we get too far into the Rock Hogan rabbit hole.
Yeah, because we have a lot to talk about.
Last week, we covered one of the best matches we have done yet on this list. I mean, did it end up in the top 10? No. But
I wanted it.
God, it was fun.
It really, really was. It was the second appearance on the list for Akira Hokuto, which was just someone that we were waiting to get back on the list.
The current Powerbound champion.
That's absolutely right.
4 in one match.
But Deadly Pudding on Twitter, who is just tremendous, had some really, really good info and feedback for that match. This is what we'll call our corrections corner for this episode, since we do it every week. Deadly Pudding on Twitter says, well, it's a last match standing episode featuring 90s Japanese wrestling, so of course your boy has things to talk about. Be prepared for several tweets. So here we go. Even though I love this match, I don't think it's either woman's best. Hokuto versus Kandori is superior, as is Toyota versus Kong. Now, a small correction. I think you guys mixed up Hokuto and Toyota's finishers.
Highly likely.
It is possible. Manami's finisher is called the Japanese Ocean Cyclone Suplex, or sometimes the Queen Suplex. Hokuto was the one who used the Northern Lights bomb, which was adopted from her husband, Kensuke Sasaki. Something kind of interesting about her is that she was a rookie the year before Manami joined AJW, and was so good they made her a trainer for the new rookies. Now, we also mentioned how Hokuto was winding down during this time, which is true, though she was still fairly active until 2000. So AJW had a mandatory retirement age of 26, and she would have been just past that age. Supposedly, this retirement age was to preserve the health of the wrestlers. And I think it's fair to say that AJW's retirement policy was more to preserve a sexist worldview that women should retire from wrestling early to become homemakers and mothers. This mandatory retirement came back to bite them in the late 90s as they lost most of their stars. Since AJW is now defunct, most of the notable shows can be found on YouTube or Dailymotion. The closest thing to a full catalog would be somewhere like IVP Videos, which has a huge collection of ISOs from many Japanese promotions. And then Deadly Pudding went on to give us a couple of really, really awesome match suggestions from that time as well. And
Keep
Deadly
an eye out
Pudding,
for those.
thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's just always a treat to have you on and to hear those match suggestions and your corrections. I'm definitely looking forward to doing a deep dive into all of AJW shows. It was just every time we watch it, it's just unlike anything else.
Yeah. Joshi! Icon versus Icon. WrestleMania 18.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Sting versus Triple H.
No.
Shit, I watched the wrong match, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you? I mean,
Again?
What are you talking about again?
most of the people in that match are involved in this match. In
You're,
some way.
oh my God.
So,
yeah, all but one.
yeah, so that's something to be, something to take
But
note
he
of.
was in the crowd, so he was there.
That's very fair. But on commentary here at WrestleMania 18, of course, we have JR and Jerry Lawler, and referee for the first time, every time, Mike Chioda.
Yes, young Michael Chioda.
Baby Chioda.
Barely 35 years in the wrestling business.
He's a fucking king in this match, too. He does a great
is
job.
awesome.
Well, he's all in this match.
He is. He's all in.
Paul, let me ask you this. How did we make our way? How did we get, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but how did we get Icon versus Icon?
Well, it is well known that the NWO, after being forcefully injected as the poison that would destroy the WWF, returned at No Way Out because NWO 1 month prior.
You get it? You get it?
And,
I did not make that connection.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, all three of them were kind of like, oh man, we're just so happy to be back here. We're thankful for Vince McMahon, and we're going to have a fun time here in the World Wrestling Federation. They just leave. Like,
Total baby faces.
yeah, no, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. That's like, I think that's Hogan's exact words were, thanks to Vince McMahon and thanks to you fans. They walk out like, what the fuck was that?
Well, this was such an interesting time, right? Because New World Order, the most recognizable, successful, and influential faction in pro wrestling history, is seemingly dissolved after Shane McMahon purchased WCW in 2001.
Whoa.
So we're in early 2002, and Ric Flair has joint 50-50 ownership of the WWE.
Consortium was me, and now we're partners.
Right. So it's 50-50 ownership. It's such a weird time in the WWF. And so Vince cuts that amazing promo.
The WWF is going to die. I know that. The WWF has cancer. Because of Ric Flair. Flair's gonna kill it. And the kind of cancer Flair gave the WWF is the slow eating kind of cancer. It's not quick. I'm not gonna let Ric Flair kill what I created. Me. The WWF is mine. It's mine. I created it. I'm not gonna let Ric Flair kill what I created. Because I'm going to kill what I created. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill my creation. I'm going to inject the WWF with a lethal dose of poison. If anybody's gonna kill my creation, I'm gonna do it. Me and the NWO.
And all
Spins
of
around in the back of his chair. It says NWO.
so good. And if you actually go back and watch this, and you watch like the weeks leading up to No Way Out, they run these NWO hype promos,
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
and they all have the same the music that they use at every other takeover.
The end is here!
They have it all the way back in 2002.
The NWO shows up, and they're all like, hey, we're happy to be here. We're happy to see you fans. We're proud of Vince McMahon. The next fucking night.
Well, no, the same night, right? So they show up in the main event of NWO, No Way Out, and they cost Stone Cold Steve Austin the WWF Championship.
Yeah, but what do they do the next fucking night?
Well, the next night on Raw, Steve Austin goes on a tirade to open the show. And essentially, long story short, gets kicked out of the building. So, seeing their work as done, the NWO decide, let's just go have some sushi. And so Hall and Nash get in the car and they're getting out of there. And as Hogan is entering the vehicle, he stops. And he says,
You know what, guys? What? Kev, you and Scott go ahead and head out. I got some personal stuff, man, I'm going to take care of right now.
You want us to take your bag?
No. Just something I need to do on my own, guys. Just send the car back for me about a half hour, bro. I got something I got to do.
Half hour?
No big deal. Love you guys, man.
All right, man.
Later, T-Bone. Be cool. I'll be with you.
All right, man. See you later. Take off, bro.
What kind of personal stuff? Personal
and so later that night, Hogan heads to the ring. Hall and Nash have gone to eat sushi. And the returning Hulk Hogan gets the craziest ovation. They are just screaming for him, and he is soaking it up. He's thanking them. I mean, this guy is cutting a old school red and yellow Hogan promo. And on a dime, he blames the fans for taking him for granted, driving him out of WWF.
I love this because he's all like, oh, man, it's so great to hear the ovation, all you Hulkamaniacs. But it's all of you the reason why I had to go down south and I had to wear the black and white. I was like, oh, you motherfucker.
There's only one thing that I've got to say to you WWF fans. You can kiss my ass.
Holy mackerel! Yeah, that's respectful.
Unreal promo.
And you know what I love, I think the most is where are they at that night? They're in Chicago on Monday Night Raw. And where are we at in WrestleMania 18? We're in Toronto, in Canada. Two of the best crowds around.
No doubt. It's Bizarro Land everywhere.
I wouldn't call it Bizarre Land. I'd call it Smart Land.
It is. It's the educated fans. And that's, God, I want to go to a show in Toronto. How
Badly.
awesome would that be?
Badly.
So on that tirade that Hogan goes off on that night, he says,
all you people are here. I'm the one that put the WWF on the map. I'm the one that made wrestling as big as it is today. That's right. There's nobody in this business that's a bigger icon than I am. There's nobody in this business that's sold out more arenas than I have. There's nobody in this business that'll go down in the history books other than Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And to lay it out nice and straight for all you WWF fans that drove me out of the WWF. I'm the biggest star, past or present, in the wrestling world today, and there'll never, ever be a bigger star in the wrestling business than Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Can you doubt that, JR? Can you say he's wrong?
If you smell what the Rock. Sorry.
you got to say that is.
Is cooking?
Don't say it like a question mark. Is cooking?
Is cooking?
Is he cooking?
Is he actually cooking or is? No,
Hey, you know the first time he said that was
WrestleMania
Jennifer
14.
Flowers, WrestleMania 14.
say,
Oh my
I
God!
back-
If you don't get that, go back and listen. WrestleMania 14.
I was gonna
last
say, like,
Mania standing.
Is The Rock cooking? No, I've watched his Instagram. He definitely does cook.
He is good in the kitchen.
but
You seen
what-
how much he eats?
Oh, I'm sure. What a perfect setup for the People's Champion.
Oh, you gotta love it. And the fun thing about this is that the night before at No Way Out, they do have a bit of a run-in, Rock and Hogan, right? Or Rock's backstage, the NWO comes up to him, and Hulk Hogan says, "Hey, can I get a picture for my son? You're my son's favorite. Can I get a picture?"
Holy shit! I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, and Rock goes, "Yeah, sure," but it's really kind of tense and awkward. And so Rock takes the picture. Hogan turns back to NWO afterwards and makes sort of a joke, right, at The Rock's expense. And so The Rock says,
What'd you just say? No. Doesn't matter what you just said. See, you shouldn't have said that. Rock was being a man, no problem. Picture for your son, no problem. Rock, I'll tell you what you could do with that camera. You, Chico, Razor Ramon. You take that camera and shine it up real nice. And then what you do, you give it to your big buddy. Big Daddy Cool, Diesel.
You turn it sideways, and then you give it to him. Give it to Hogan. Hogan, you take that camera. It's already shined up. Turn sideways, eat your vitamin, say your prayers, and stick it straight up all your candy asses.
So that night, the seed kind of planted for him to come out and interrupt Hogan's personal moment.
But
well, no, the
this
seed
segment,
kind of was planted for them to try to murder him with a semi-truck and an ambulance.
this segment, this personal thing that Hogan had to get off his chest, that he was the best past or present star. This segment is pro wrestling at its absolute best. Whenever they can make that seamless transition from what this guy, this heel is trying to say, and it just slides right into, well, wait a minute, brother.
I know that a moment's great when I can go back 18 years later and feel the electricity still when I will go back and rewatch it. And you can absolutely, it's palpable and it's almost perfectly done, right? So The Rock comes to the ring.
The Rock looks straight at Hogan and he says,
Finally, The Rock has come back to Chicago.
and we've seen The Rock do this, obviously.
He does it every time.
Countless times.
Cheap pop.
But the way he looks at Hogan when he does it is unlike anything I've seen him do. Can The Rock set you up or what?
Yeah.
Like, The Rock knows
Well,
what he's doing on the mic. Probably better than anyone else ever has.
Is he the most charismatic wrestler of all time?
Easily?
No, The Miz.
Not even a little. I mean, well, there is Christian. But besides those two, no, seriously. Like, do you think it was the fans who drove you out of the WWF? Is that what you think? Is that what you think?
Well, obviously.
It doesn't matter what you think. So fucking good. I've seen this segment a dozen times, and every time I hear The Rock actually challenge Hogan to headline one more WrestleMania, and you see them both react to the crowd, I get chills every time.
You talked about headlining, main eventing, WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania. Well, Hulk Hogan, The Rock says, how do you feel about headlining one more WrestleMania with The Rock? Oh my God!
The Rock describes it best as the fantasy matchup that absolutely transcends this industry.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the great things about wrestling. Sometimes, not always the best thing, but one of the great things that you can get in wrestling that you can't get in football, or you most of the time can't get in baseball, you can't get in basketball, is that those two legends from different eras competing against each other. And you can get that in wrestling sometimes.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Okay, so of course, after this legendary, albeit lengthy, promo, Hall and Nash have had enough.
But the
promo was so long, they finished their sushi. So they come to the ring, and they just wreck the shit out of The Rock.
And then Hogan hits him in the back of the head with a hammer.
It's nuts.
Yeah. And as he's being carried away in the ambulance.
Yeah, so he's being carried away, gets into the ambulance. The ambulance is driving away.
And then a fucking semi-truck hits it, backs up, and then hits it again.
And then Braun Strowman flips the semi. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Like 15-year-old Braun Strowman, like, oh, bro, I'm going to flip that truck.
He's gonna what?
He's going to do what to the truck?
I'm going to flip that truck.
He's gonna flip it.
Where the fuck are your minds at?
That's just not what I heard.
We both heard it.
Listen, I was watching an episode of My Strange Addiction, and it just kind of went there. But
Well, there was one about a guy fucking a car, so.
well, you know what? Braun Strowman would not have been the one that come out and flipped the truck. It would have been, what was the kid he tagged with at WrestleMania?
Oh, Nicholas.
Nicholas. It would have been him.
He
He would
was-
have come out.
he was
That guy was just a
Nicholas-
glint in.
Nicholas is 11 years old. He wasn't alive.
Who's that referee dad? Who's that?
It's
kid's
John
dad?
Cone.
John, yeah, he was just a glint in John Cone's eye at that point. The next week on Raw, the NWO come out with a wheelbarrow, which I don't even know if we ever get the payoff to that. I don't. Hogan cuts a less than enthusiastic promo saying that he'll have to wait for WrestleMania to finish The Rock off, but he will go one-on-one, face-to-face with The Rock later tonight. And oh, does he ever. Because the camera later that night, it just cuts to this backstage segment and it's zoomed in to The Rock's face. But The Rock still has like his 99 sideburns, like his 98, 99 sideburns. And it's just like, wait a minute, this isn't The Rock. Zoom out a little bit. And it's the most classic old school looking cardboard cutout of The Rock. And Hogan is just cutting a promo at him. and it looks so good because he's got the towel draped over The Rock's shoulders. It's fucking great.
Ultimately, what this NWO angle does kind of pair off into Steve Austin versus Scott Hall.
Oh, yeah,
as
they
well.
smash his leg with a fucking cinder block that explodes into powder immediately.
Yeah.
Fucking sandcastle.
And so we get a returning Rock just a week or two before WrestleMania. And the last show before WrestleMania 18, Rock and Austin team up to go against Hogan and Hall. And Hulk Hogan hits the leg drop on The Rock and gets the pin. So that's how we see our last shot before WrestleMania 18. And then we get to the Sky Dome. And then we get to Icon versus Icon. And maybe everything that was planned up to that moment, however they thought that night was going to go, everything changed.
Well, once again, to quote The Rock and to quote Hulk Hogan, because they were both interviewed about this past year. So the original plan for this match was that The Rock was going to win. That was it. They were trying to build Hogan as as the Death Star, as the ultimate evil heel, and that when The Rock beat him, it would be this big moment.
And that does seem like the natural course of things, based on how we got to WrestleMania.
Attempted vehicular homicide
Right?
is not the behavior of a babyface.
Well, tell that to Toronto.
Yeah. The decision, well, if you can go back and watch it, Hogan comes out, NWO, and he's like really trying to get heat. Yay, we love you. And he's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do about this, brother. Rock comes out, and he's getting booed. He's getting he's getting a 2007 John Cena reaction. Half the crowd loves him, half the crowd hates him.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
They just stand in the middle of the ring, and the crowd is so fucking loud that, like, you can't hear anything. And Hogan, they both stop. They look at the crowd. They pause. Like, what are we going to do? Hogan's like, lock up. So they lock up, and he's like, take a bump. The Rock takes a bump. Hogan looks at the crowd and kind of smiles, and then he flexes. And that's when they decided, all right, The Rock's going to be the heel. Hogan's going to be the babyface.
You have to, right? I mean, there was no other course of action that they could have taken at that moment.
Well, you see, you'd say that, but in 2015, 16, 17, and 18, they tried it with Roman Reigns, and it didn't work.
Correct.
No, you're going to wrestle the match that I told you to wrestle, even if you're getting booed, damn it.
So
they're going to cheer you if you win.
This should have been the template for wrestling moving forward. This is how you handle that situation. It's not what happened. But dear God, if it didn't have saved this match, because this is the craziest crowd. What I wouldn't give to go back in time and be in the mosh pit that is the first 6 or 7 rows of the Sky Dome.
Well, I mean, you can't be like, no, I'm the good guy and Hogan's the bad guy when you have the near deafening chance for Hogan. You cannot sit there and be like, no, we're going to do what we play. No, like they called the whole match in the ring.
Well, I think there is an argument to be had about, and I'm not saying this because this was not necessarily the case this night. I'm just saying in general. I think there's an argument to be had about this is how this crowd is tonight. That might not be how they are next week when we're somewhere else.
Yeah, but like Hogan was getting cheered.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying like the argument for keeping and wrestling the same match is that you have to continue next week too, not in the same place. So I'm just saying it's not necessarily like every time the crowd seems to feel differently, let's change our plans.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that at all, but it's fucking WrestleMania. I mean,
yeah, no, I'm good with it. I'm here, like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it was absolutely the right call here.
It's a more nuanced thing than that, I guess. Yeah, definitely get that.
Yeah.
Definitely get that. Another thing we get, though, before the match even starts, earlier in the night, The Rock cuts one of my favorite Rock promos of all time.
With the coach.
Who, dear God, around this time period...
G. What up, G?
What up, G? Pretty much the coach's entire career up to this point is nothing but getting ribbed.
Yeah.
That is his entire career.
That's how the wrestling business works.
Pretty much.
And it's so good. in this interview, isn't it?
Well, The Rock cuts a Rock promo, but what some people may have missed is underneath the delivery of it all being a Rock promo, he's delivering it as if he is 80s era Hulk Hogan. There are moments where he starts walking around and turns around and starts doing a promo from his, from behind, like Hogan used to do. And at the end of the promo, he rips off his shirt, and he's doing these little things with his eyes. And it's just, go back and watch this with that in mind. It's almost like being transported back to like WrestleMania 5.
He was there.
Right. The only things that were missing were The Rock saying that he was going to save Donald Trump in an earthquake and him swimming away at the end.
Backstroke.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That's the only things
backstroke
missing.
away, brother.
But
Twilight's last screaming.
Well, you know what else we get for the match starts? The last man standing sign of the night.
hey,
Dude. Yeah, this one says, "Hey Hogan, 1983 called."
Paul, if you had to finish that poster, what did 1983 say?
I've got your hair.
Yeah. Well, so I did see a couple of great signs.
There were some good ones.
I saw a lot of NWO sucks with an X.
Well, okay, so I really loved the classic Hulk Hogan WrestleMania
Oh,
sign.
yeah, they had
like
the-
the old
Yeah.
school
Yeah,
sign.
they had like the fucking flag from like WrestleMania
Yes.
6.
And then we had my last match standing sign of the night, which was I like Rock's bottom.
No, that was mine. Damn it.
I've never seen the Rock's bottom.
That person apparently loves it. So, fan of the night, sign of
Apparently
the night.
Spencer does too.
I don't. I think you're implying things. I don't know. But yeah. Ultimately, we do get into the ring, just like Paul was talking about. They have this moment, and it's one of those moments where. And listen, we know that the WWF really likes to write their own history, but this is one of those moments where time really did stand still.
It did, yeah.
And however you remember it, is really how it happened.
And look at the flash balls. This is a WrestleMania moment. On March 17th, 2002. You can circle that date on your calendar. Because I can tell you it's going to be a day that I'm never going to forget. Quite frankly, a match I thought I would never, ever see.
We'll never see Tyson and Ali. We'll never see Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds, but we are going to get to witness The Rock and the Hulk. Only at WrestleMania. And only in the WWF, JR.
That stare down, the eyes, they look from side to side, and then the match begins. And you can tell very early on that they've decided to change things.
Oh, yeah. So they lock up, and The Rock starts to kind of push Hogan back, and then Hogan just shoves him across the ring. He does a fucking backflip and lands flat in his ass, and he just looks like, looks embarrassed, and he's all pissed off, and Hogan just goes, ah!
He poses.
Tears the shirt off, poses like, yeah.
And the
okay.
crowd's just eating it up.
Oh, they love it. Man, do they love it.
I think Hogan asking Hall and Nash to stay backstage for this match really added a lot to it because you were just able to focus on the two guys in the ring.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Plus, they already failed to beat Steve Austin earlier in the night. So I think my favorite thing about this match is after Hogan poses, he starts pummeling The Rock in the corner. He goes, you ain't nothing but a meatball. You ain't nothing but a meatball. You ain't nothing meatball. And he tries to whips The Rock and does like a fucking elbow. And I'm like, what is going on? Why is he calling him a meatball?
I will say this match, and this is something that I remembered about this match before going back to prep for this episode. I remember that this match has some of my least favorite punches in the history of professional wrestling.
You don't like the Land of SmackDown punches?
What I don't like is noticing the whole entire foot of space between the fist and the skull that happens.
Only a couple of them.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just, to me, it feels very 2002. You know what I mean? In terms of like in-ring action. And so it takes away something for me if I'm paying attention to the detail. But this match is much more, I think, about the moment than the technical wrestling for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get Hogan doing the back rakes of doom and the fucking biting, which means, of course, that he's wrestling face.
Yeah, as he always has.
He's trying to remove his opponent's face.
No, I mean, if you go back and watch 1986, 1987, super babyface Hogan, these are the moves that he did.
Yeah, but they're always biting each other, and I'm sitting there going, no one has so much hepatitis in wrestling. Biting each other. What I love is when Hogan kind of goes to Rock and just goes, hey, hooray, Rock, just bring it. And the Rock does a flying clothesline. And then he gets booed, and he tells Hogan, just bring it. I do love how Hogan does the rock bottom.
Oh, my God. Hogan's rock bottom is actually really, really good.
It was interesting. Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Did anybody else notice George Lucas in like the third row? I swear to God.
It was George Lucas. It had to be.
I don't think he even knows what wrestling is.
Hulk Hogan hits the rock bottom because Kyoto's knocked down in the ring. So Kyoto gets knocked down in the ring. Hulk Hogan hits a low blow on the Rock.
Oh, like, you son of a bitch. And then the dreaded abdominal stretch.
See, I didn't mind the abdominal stretch here, actually. I thought it was placed well. The pacing really called for one.
Well, he
here.
locked it in and started pounding him in the ribs with his forearm. So it's like, I'm trying to hurt you. He wasn't trying to do it as a submission. And I just kind of thought it was really funny. And then,
I'm sure Spencer was just like, okay, well, it's definitely WrestleMania.
Yeah, it felt very familiar. I feel like I'd seen it 9 times before.
One thing I really enjoyed is Hogan whips Rock into the ropes, and Rock comes back. Hogan does a fucking choke slam. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah, it's this weird, like, almost
Suplexes,
STO
choke
thing.
slams?
It's very bizarre.
Who is this man?
I don't know. Like, Hulk Hogan at this point is, 48, and The Rock is 28, 29-ish. And it just looks like they've never wrestled before at some points. Like, it just looks like the chemistry is a little bit off. But you're allowed to make those sort of like little small mistakes when the crowd's so behind the match like it is.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't matter.
Guys, we talk about crowds making matches, and in some cases being such a factor that it deserves a spot on a list of being the 100 greatest matches of all time. This crowd that was in Toronto that night, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I think the only ones that can compare are a couple of others on our list. Canadian Stampede and perhaps SummerSlam 92.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the only other two, I think, that I can think of best matches and best crowds for matches. And what do all three of them have in common?
A back to the outside, a barricade spot.
And they are outside the United States.
That too.
That's true.
Sorry, I can't resist. That's the next part of the match. Hogan backdrops Rock out to the outside, and they start brawling on the outside. Rock grabs a chair.
Ooh.
And Kyo's like, no, he can't do that. But while he's doing that, Hogan just starts to pummel him, and they start smashing him to the announce table.
God, I love Kyoto there. Yeah. Because, I mean, he just has this look on his face is like, you're not fucking this match up. This is too big of a deal.
Dead serious. It's awesome.
Then as they're kind of fighting over the chair, and then Kyoto just kind of gets squished by the Rock. And
so when Kyoto was hit and he was knocked down, I noticed his uniform it had like a American flag on the back of it, and I had never noticed a ref uniform like that before.
I think we're at this point still 6 months or so out from 9/11.
Oh yeah, this is March.
Wow,
yes.
I didn't even think about that.
The Rock hits the sharpshooter.
He does
in Canada.
He sure does.
I didn't even think about that.
They were not happy. They were booing him. And then Kyoto's unconscious, so Hogan taps out. I'm like, Hogan's tapping out. That's never happened before. I mean, it happened once, but not really. But it's happening.
But like we mentioned, Kyoto's down.
Yeah. And I do love, as Kyoto kind of comes up, that's when Hogan does the low blow.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. People love it.
And I love this because then he takes his weightlifting belt off and begins to whip the Rock like a government mule.
JR.
They do a great sort of back and forth with the belt, right?
Yeah, because then the Rock hits a DDT, and then he grabs the belt and starts whipping Hogan with it.
after he spits on it, which I think is a tremendous move.
Oh,
You know, he's
Hogan,
playing.
classic. You can't not.
No, exactly.
And then the rock bottom.
The rock bottom on Hogan. The hook of the leg. And this Hogan kicked out. Rock got Hogan kicked out. Look at this. The rock bottom. And I don't think that the rock. Wait a minute. Is he going to hook up there? He is. Oh, cannot believe it. Oh, my God. What you going to do, Rock? My God, the Rock can't believe it. What you going to do? And Hogan scores in the right hand. Hogan to the Rock for the Rock. The end could be near for the Rock at WrestleMania 18. He beat Andre the Giant with that move. The leg is hooked. Oh my God! My God, the Rock kicked out.
The kick out after the leg drop. What I love the most about it is that right as Hogan hits the leg drop, JR says he used that move to beat Andre the Giant. So how incredible does it make The Rock look now, right? That he kicks out of that
Oh, yeah,
move.
he kicks out. And then so Hogan does like another big boot. And then he's going for the second big leg, but The Rock moves out of the way and then hits 2 rock bottoms. Kips up, does people's elbow, and The Rock wins.
There are few things that could have been done at this point in Dwayne Johnson's career to make him a bigger deal than he was.
Do you want to know why he did 2 rock bottoms?
Why did he do 2 rock bottoms?
Because he's like, well, if I do 1, Terry might kick out. So if I do 2, he has to lay down. And Hulk Hogan assured the plan was always that he was going to lay down. But like The Rock was like, oh, just in case he doesn't lay down, I'm going to do 2. Because he can't kick out of 2.
No, but really, I mean, at this point in his career, what else could have made The Rock a bigger deal? This was
Actually be
flawless.
Triple H?
I mean, I thought it was, was it a flawless match? No, of course
No,
not.
there's
There were some
always-
issues, but
They're hitting pretty well.
I guarantee you that there's no way that you'll be able to capture that kind of electricity, that kind of environment with 2 other guys.
Agreed.
There's just no way.
Agreed. And
Totes.
you can kind of tell because of what happens after the match, right?
Well, Hogan he's holding his ribs, which were allegedly bruised. He had like a house show or some kind of match with Rikishi where Rikishi he wasn't paying attention and got squashed. Had some bruised ribs, but he's kind of like, all right, brother. Goes for the handshake, and they're like, "Ooh, no, what's going to happen? He's going to kick The Rock in the balls." I'm like, "Oh wait, no, that's next year with Shawn Michaels and Jericho." No, they actually shake hands, and that's what it's all about, folks. That's what it's all about, right there. Ow! Look at the show of respect by Hogan. And then Hall and Nash like, "What the fuck is this shit?" Shaking his hand, NWO for life. They start beating up Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan's out.
Yeah, it doesn't take long, right? It happens immediately following the match. The Rock comes back down the ramp, gets the save for Hogan, and then he makes sure that Hogan has his time.
Oh no, Hogan's like walking in the ring like, get back in here. Pose. What? Pose. They can't hear you. Oh, can they hear me? Oh, I don't know. What about you over there? How about you guys? Yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna pose.
This is one of the few Hogan takes his time to pose for the crowd moments that is genuinely a feel good.
He wasn't
moment.
gonna do it. Like he was like, I'm out of here. It's the
Exactly.
Rock. I don't know. This is your moment. Pose. They want you. Pose.
And I love this because as someone who's been watching, from this moment all the way through to today, I really got callbacks here to what The Rock did for John Cena. And no, maybe he didn't actually.
Well, I think to kind of land to your point, we talk about how this match is something that really can only happen in wrestling, between 2 legends of 2 different eras coming together. But Rock Cena, same thing. Now, the difference obviously is The Rock did in fact win the first matchup, but it's also because he stuck around. He was around for a bit. He was playing it was a part-time role, but in an era of part-timers. So whatever.
It made sense. I mean, he had a run as the WWE champion.
Yeah, it absolutely made sense. And so John Cena does get it back at WrestleMania 29, but it's these 2 legends of their respective eras clashing and it creating this big moment that transcends the sport. right? Because outside of The Rock, John Cena, when has there been as much mainstream attention on WrestleMania since then? Maybe Ronda Rousey. So like these are these big moments that are sort of larger than the WWE or the WWF, right? And so no, this match isn't perfect, but it's a moment and a time that I think people remember really, really fondly.
Yeah, me too.
And that's why we've gotten it suggested to us so often, I think, right?
Absolutely. This is one of the most suggested matches that we've had. And that's why we chose to put it right here, smack dab in the middle of the list, as our 50th match reviewed. Guys, what are your favorite moments throughout this match?
The pose down.
It's a good moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can top the start,
No.
I just don't think you can.
Because the start is huge to me because it's a callback to that first promo that they had when the crowd went nuts, and they both take a beat and they look to their left and they look to their right, and you see it again right here at the start of the match. I get chills every time I see it.
And so it shows the importance of both of those crowds, right? Hugely important to these moments. Hugely, hugely important. Which is part of why, the wrestling in 2020 has been so difficult because of the lack of crowds.
I also want to point out that like WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 18, Toronto, Hogan lost both times.
Huh. Yeah, JR mentioned the Sky Dome jinx a couple of times.
The Curse of Toronto.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So if I could go back in time, I would have WrestleMania 1 through 9 in Toronto.
Absolutely.
But what I think is interesting is, here...
Well, no, because then we'd have King Kong Bundy as the WWF champion.
So here, Hogan passes the torch to The Rock, but like at WrestleMania 6, he was supposed to be passing it to the Warrior, but the Warrior kind of couldn't hold the torch. It was too hot, I guess. And then they gave it back to Hulk, and then he passed it to Bret Hart, but not... Oh, no, this is a bad analogy.
By way of Yokozuna?
Yeah.
So for the 50th time, it is now our chance to rank this match on the list of the greatest matches of all time. But for the first time, we have some feedback.
Thank God.
So one of our Lexorcist patrons, Storm, was gracious enough to send us his feelings, his feedback, his reaction, and his ranking of Rock Hogan at WrestleMania 18. So, Storm, let's hear what you got.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for hearing my opinion on this match. As I've told Spencer several times, I love the podcast. I love everything you guys do. You do a great job. When Spencer told me what match you guys were doing, I was honestly kind of confused. I've had a long bias against this match. I think that should have been Stone Cold in there as opposed to The Rock. Without Stone Cold, there is no Rock, in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. I watched it twice today. I'd probably seen it 8 times before this. And I have to say, I've changed my opinion. The Rock was perfect. I don't think Stone Cold could have pulled off that match. I think The Rock was the right guy at the right time, which is exactly what this match is. This match is a perfect blend of the right two people at the right time, at the right event, with the right crowd. Like, everything matched up perfectly for this. The crowd was incredible. You can see that from the beginning of the match. The moment Hogan gets in the ring, they're going crazy for him. They're booing The Rock. It's what leads to his inevitable heel turn, several months down the line. There were moments within the match, Hogan's giving elbows to The Rock while he's on the ground, and the crowd's just going crazy, so he stops. And he gives a quick, boot rake to the face, and then there's another moment where he climbs up to the corner, or up in the corner for a 10 spot, and 2 punches in, the crowd's cheering like crazy, so he stops and bites The Rock. And both of them play into that the entire match. But at the same time, if you watch this match with the sound off, it would be number 50. There wouldn't even be a debate. If you revisit this 25 matches from now, it would be number 75 with no debate. If you revisit this 50 matches from now, it would be number 100 with no debate. It's an awful wrestling match, but it is the absolute epitome of a sports entertainment spectacle. It's the biggest two stars that they could get at that time in the same ring, and it's something no one ever thought they would see. Now, when Spencer first told me, I said, well, hey, send me your rankings 35 through 50 or 35 through 49 so far, because it's not going to be any higher than that. Now, this is probably one of the top 3 crowds you guys have had, behind Canadian Stampede and Brett Bulldog in Wembley Stadium. And I thought it was funny because Spencer sent me 30 through 49, and those two were 34 and like maybe 39, 40, somewhere in that area. And I just thought that was funny because those are the two barometers that I was using the entire time. The crowd is absolutely nuts. It's insane. It's, again, one of the best crowds you guys have seen so far. And so I put it up against those two. Brett Bulldog, to me, is a top 25 match that you guys have done. It's not better than that. Canadian Stampede has some of probably 5 of the greatest wrestlers of all time in it. Brett, Austin, Owen, Bulldog. Like, I can go on. It's not better than that. And ultimately, when I look at this, the crowd can only mean so much. When I look at it from a perspective of importance, yeah, this is a great match, but in regards to the 100 greatest matches ever, the only match it's better than is TLC 1, and that's being generous because I actually like that match. I enjoy it. So I would have to say 49 for this match.
Thank you so much, Storm. How about 49 out of 50?
Shit balls.
Wow.
Okay,
so
yeah, I want to go first here
all
because I really appreciated that take on this match. I think you really summed it up beautifully, Storm. I appreciate that.
very similar to my take.
I mean, strictly based on how electric the crowd was, I was going to say I had this in the 6 to 10 range, and Paul just like did
All right, it's been a
take.
great show's
but
been great.
listen, so no match can ever equal the prestige of someone like Hogan and someone like Rock. There will never be 2 stars as huge as those two in the ring at the same time ever again. It just will not happen. At least not for the foreseeable future.
No.
Like, Cena is not even as big as those guys were, and there is nobody in the business today as big as Cena.
No.
So it's just not going to happen. And so, but there were some really, really great points that Storm made. How much weight can you really give it just based on that, right? It is that alone enough to make it a top 10 match.
No. And I do love how he also mentioned the famous, if you turn the volume off, it's like matches, yeah.
I agree.
I don't think it's a bad match. I just think they didn't do much, but they didn't have to. They were getting like fucking glass shatter reactions for standing there.
Well, and I think that absolutely ties into what Storm said, that it's not a great wrestling match, but it is the definition of a sports entertainment spectacle.
I would say we've dropped the spectacle word a lot, but this match is pure 100% spectacle. But if I had to rank it and split hairs, I'd say Hogan's 48, number 48. The numbers don't lie. Landon.
Hogan's 48, so it's number 48. Oh, my God. No, I think, so I originally had this in the top 10.
Wow.
So I think I'll be generous, though, and I'll go to where Storm said. He said he would not put it above Canadian Stampede. Canadian Stampede is 42. And so going up from there, right, if I said, okay, well, I think this is such a big deal, and to me personally, Canadian Stampede just isn't. Was it a great match? Sure. It had some great guys in it. The crowd, phenomenal. This one, so much more big of a deal to me. So CM Punk Undertaker, it's another big stage. It's WrestleMania, and it's a match that I feel like...
It's the only good match in that card.
Well, I feel like even the match itself was sort of less than what I had hoped it would be. Very similar to Rock Hogan, you could say. The crowd nowhere near as invested in that match. Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio. They did some really innovative things, but I would still put this above that. So I guess, moving up from there, we've got the Alundra Blaze versus Bull Nakano. Historic, really, really great feud. Mike Awesome, Masato Tanaka. Can I possibly put a match that's really just shock value above this? I don't know. So I might, doing the crawl, I would be hard pressed to put this any lower than maybe 32. So I would put it right above Cactus Jack versus Triple H, considering Storm's take on the match.
Spencer, what do you got? Please don't stop listening.
I am really, really torn on this because it's a match where people remember it and they remember it fondly, and so it's one of those questions that we've asked ourselves. We asked this a lot when we were starting this podcast. Do we want to rank the 100 greatest matches, or do we want to rank the 100 greatest moments? And this is one of the 100 greatest moments. This might be top 5 greatest moments.
This is like a top 5
ever
moment. This is like a Mount Rushmore moment of wrestling.
But I'm having a hard time putting it over wrestling matches that are 10 times as good.
That was the problem I was hitting. I was like, man.
And so it's a tough call here. And I think it's as divisive of a match as we've seen in terms of where it could possibly go on this list, because I think, like I kind of said earlier, if you ask a handful of people, they're going to put it in that top 10 range, like you said, Landon. If you ask a handful of people like Storm, it's going to be in the bottom 10, and maybe not a whole lot in between. And so I found myself being very, very torn. Where I landed was starting from the bottom, going up, and picking the match that I thought was too good of a wrestling match to put it past. And that one was Marty Jones and Rollerball Rocco. Yeah. So I ended at 39.
I'm very comfortable with that. I think you're absolutely right. They put on an absolute wrestling clinic. If you want to know how to become a professional wrestler, go watch that match. Don't necessarily watch this match, because these are two guys that have already established themselves.
Yeah, right.
And so, okay, I get it.
When you started saying they put on a wrestling clinic, like, what? Jones Rocco.
Jones Rocco.
It's like, wait, what? No, Rock and Hogan put on a storytelling clinic.
And if you want some, you're so old jokes, go watch Jones Rocco.
If you want to hear Ian Bradley, go watch.
Ian Bradley. He's the best.
You know what this match needed? Paul Bear. Suburban Commandos, your best movie, Hulk Hogan. The Rock's worst movie is Walking Tall. You're gonna burn in hell. You'll burn in hell.
Okay, so we have settled on 39. Paul, is that okay?
Yeah.
Landon?
39, yeah, absolutely.
50 matches in. Icon versus Icon is our 39th greatest wrestling match of all time.
Well, if you average their ages, it would be 39.
See?
It actually would.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie.
They don't. As long as the numbers don't lie, I'm good.
50 matches down, 50 matches to go to decide the last match standing. Again, thanks to Storm for sending in that feedback for us on this match. It was awesome. If you want to also be featured on an episode, all you have to do is head on over to Patreon and become a Lexorcist, right? You become a Lexorcist or a 2-time Slammy Award winner. Plenty of options there for you for all sorts of good content, including Last Mania Standing, where you can hear us talk about Hogan for the first 9 episodes. And then also we have our trivia episodes there, and Welcome to the Elite, where we break down AEW from the beginning. So I can't wait for the next 50. I don't know if we'll find a crowd as good as this one along the way.
Probably not.
But we'll probably find some better wrestling matches. So until then, I'm Spencer.
Whoa, we're halfway there. I'm Paul.
And I'm Landon.
And this is Last Match Standing.